Yeah, it takes just a sec. You're live on YouTube and you're now recording.
Thank you. All right, good evening, everyone. It's Monday, June 22nd, 6 p.m. This is a New Shoreham Town Council budget work session. The New Shoreham Town Council will meet via telecommunications pursuant to the State of Rhode Island Executive Order 2025, dated April 15th, 2020. Just to remind everyone that for those of you who are on participating, to mute if you're not speaking and raise your hands if you'd like to speak. First item on the agenda, joining us this evening is the town council. We also have interim town manager Jim Kern and finance director Lewis. And like I said, if you're not,
Ken, you're breaking up, Ken.
I'm breaking up.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. We're getting a lot of background noise from you also, Martha. I think it might be a
You're
bad.
not getting any from, well, I can go through this again, but there's nothing going on at my house.
Okay. Well, we'll try to. We'll try to keep going, and if it's still bad, let us know. First item on the agenda is a town council continued budget discussion. If there's anything we need to follow up on or discuss, any questions, this will be the time to bring those up. Does anyone have any questions? Sven Riesman is also joining us at this time. Anyone have any questions or concerns at this time? Any comments? There again, if you do want to raise your hand, I believe it's *9. If you want to mute, it's unmute yourself, it's *6. There again, we're on the first item on the agenda, town council continued budget discussion. Does anyone have any questions or comments? All right. Hearing none, we'll move along to the second item, which is the actual budget public hearing. We will be continuing this from this evening until Wednesday. So if anyone has any questions and they can't participate tonight, they can forward us those questions and we'll try to take them up at Wednesday's meeting. So we'll open this budget hearing and then we'll continue it. This is the budget public hearing. Is there any comments or questions from anyone at this time on the budget, or any comments anyone would like to make from the council or anyone? Okay, hearing none, I'll make a motion to continue this budget public hearing until Wednesday.
Second.
Second by Andre. There again, if everyone has the opportunity to have any questions still on the budget, send them to us via email or text. And we will take them up on Wednesday. All's in favor. Andre?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
I vote in the affirmative. Motion carries 5-0. We will continue this on Wednesday. Next item on the agenda is receive and act on a request of the Broadband Committee authorization to participate in the FCC's auction 904 Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. We do have a memo from the Broadband Committee explaining this, but Amy, if you're on, would you please just give us a synopsis or whatever you think is necessary?
Sure.
We left in December. That's the last time the council and the broadband committee had a conversation. And at that point, you authorized us to move forward in our conversations with Surtex and Crocker, who were our preferred responders to the bid process that we went through last summer and fall. And we spent that time working on refining the design and the pricing structure and the final numbers, and then we all suspended activity. And of course, during that time, it became clear to a lot of people in this conversation in particular, just how critical this project is to the island. And the sense of urgency has only increased since then. At the same time, a new funding opportunity has arrived, and that's through the FCC program, the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, which is similar to some auctions that the FCC has run in the past to support deployment of broadband. Some of the standards have changed, and that makes it an opportunity that could actually be very viable for Block Island. They're identifying us for the first time as unique census blocks, which means that we're not lumped into a much bigger program where somebody's going to bid on all of Rhode Island. We're uniquely identified, and we know that not many vendors would have an interest in bidding on us as a standalone. So that program, I think Michelle is on the line as well. I'm going to ask her to handle any questions about the actual reverse auction process, which is fairly complicated, but it allows a respondent to bid on funding for those census blocks. And then the funding is distributed over a 10-year period, and you're basically bidding down from a reserve price. Based on prior FCC auctions, we would estimate that maybe we'd see a winning bid in the 70% of reserve level, which could mean, and this is really what people want to know, could mean about $275,000 of annual support for our network over a 10-year period, which makes it a pretty significant funding source and one that we really need to pursue in a meaningful way. So while this feels fast and has come together quickly, it's really the convergence of the work that we've been doing, the new realization, given the COVID environment, of just how critical this project is, and a unique funding source that hasn't been available before, and we now need to take advantage of, and it's got a very short window. So the first recommendation in front of you is for the town to authorize the town's, for the town council to authorize the town's participation in the initial application process for the RDOF fund. That's a short form application window that basically expresses interest in participating in the auction. And that window is July 1 through July 15th. So like I said, this is a fairly expedited process. And we're working with our partners, Crocker and Surtex, to determine exactly what form the right entity is to make that application. It could be the town with them as direct partners in a consortium, or it could be just the town lending support to the application made directly by Surtex and Crocker. This is a really detailed request as part of a much bigger conversation about where broadband goes for us. And so there's a little disconnect there. I realize we're asking for something really particular, and you may want to talk more about the big picture, but I'll pause there for questions, and we can see where we want the conversation to go next.
Thank you, Amy. The first one that comes to mind as you're speaking was the 10-year support, the annual $250,000 annual support times 10 years. Would that be to offset the debt service for the build out?
There are a couple different ways that that can be structured and identified. And that's something that we are engaging in a conversation with Crocker about now. So whether you consider it an offset to operating costs, some communities have used that fund, those funds to directly offset their debt service and pay down that borrowing early. We're still working out what the specifics are and how we can best apply it for Block Island.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions or comments? Sven Reeson?
Amy, do you have a recommendation in your mind whether we let Certex go alone or do it as a team? I'll use that term. It would seem to me, especially for our own district, that going as a combined team would feel more advantageous, or am I not understanding?
There are some technical aspects to the long form application and the actual bidding process that require that the primary entity be an ETC, a telecommunications carrier, which obviously the town is not, and I don't think at this point we want to be. So that makes it likely that Crocker as the ISP and the ETC would be the lead. At this point, I would recommend the council allow some latitude for the broadband committee to do either. Because again, we are working a little bit quickly. We want to support them, even if it's just their name on the application, but we're still working out those details. The other thing we want to make sure is that by the town participating, we're not precluding ourselves from other funding opportunities, which we are still pursuing. So.
One last one, Ken.
Right.
If you could help me a little bit with timing. I mean, is the delay sort of COVID based and suddenly, it just seems, I'm all in, I'm supportive. I'm just asking from a process point of view, a little bit of cart before the horse, that's fine. But can you help me how we sort of got here?
Sure. You know, I think as the broadband committee was working through the winter, we were trying to decide whether we were going to be ready for a May financial town meeting, and we decided it was probably a little quick, but that we really had all the pieces in place, and so it was just a matter of refining the message and doing the level of education that we wanted to do to the community. So that piece was obviously put on hold, and at the same time, this RDOF fund finally promulgated their rules. They just released the final set of rules on June 9th. So we've had to digest them pretty quickly. And as we've watched a lot of these programs go by, we have often found that we don't qualify. So we watch them and watch them, and then we're not eligible. So we sort of expected that to happen on this, honestly. And so far, everything is coming together.
Thank you. Other questions? Comments? So this doesn't, as you said, this is basically, we don't have the final design nailed down yet, but this is basically to provide us the opportunity to fund whatever way we decide to go. Is that correct?
It is. We are actually pretty close to a final design from a network engineering perspective, and we'll get to our third request in a minute, which is to meet with you to talk about the specifics of that. But the engineering is pretty far along, and the design is fairly well set. We were still spending some time on the pricing structure and exactly which parts are funded by the island as a whole and which parts were funded directly by the property owner and which parts were funded by just the subscribers of the network. And so the broadband committee continues to work pretty aggressively now on finalizing that discussion so that we can make a recommendation.
Okay. Thank you, Amy. Sven, hold on a second. Martha, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. Sven, go ahead.
Last one, Amy, and while I don't think, hope, pray that this isn't going to ever be a reality, are there any penalties if we get this and are awarded this and suddenly for some reason we don't move forward? Obviously, in other words, is there an exit?
There, at certain points, there is an exit. We can apply as part of the short form application process, and you can withdraw without any penalty at that point. The go/no-go points is really the auction itself, which is scheduled for October. So at that point, we would be fully committed. And if I can keep going for a minute, even though I answered your question, that is really the reason that we need to put the question before the voters at a financial meeting, because we need the town's commitment in hand in order to participate in the auction. So that really is the critical piece that's driving the timetable. We need to have the funding commitment, whether it's a full commitment, we're going to do this whether we're successful or not, or whether it's a contingent commitment that says we need to be successful at a certain level to move forward. You know, we can still decide that, but once we do participate in the auction, we are committed.
So then just as follow-up, so the authorization that you're looking for from the town council is really the participation and the preparations to get into the auction, which will then take place in October. Is that correct?
Correct. Right now, we're asking for authorization to participate in the short form application process.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ken.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to authorize the town's participation in the short form application process for the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund Auction 904.
Second.
Seconded by Chris. And Amy, do I need to include the request for warrant question on that?
It's a separate
If
one.
we can spend a little time on that separately.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. Other questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor? Andre?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Sven?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
Thank you. I vote in the affirmative. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you for that, Amy. The next item on the agenda, well, are we still on item 1? You want to handle the second request?
Yeah, the second part of the recommendation is really to prepare for that question to go before the voters. We haven't proposed language at that point. That feels a little premature, but we wanted to make sure it was on everybody's radar. Start thinking about it. Again, it is a short time frame that we're talking about, and so that we will be back in front of you with draft language as we work through the process. And the more questions you have and ask early, the better prepared we can be to get to that point. But there's not really any action relative to that at this point, except for number 3.
Okay, you don't need authorization to prepare a warrant question? Okay. All right, anything else on that one? Anyone? All right, the third one, in preparation for the above warrant question, go ahead.
Did you want to go back, Andre?
Yes, thank you, Amy.
Sorry.
I'm just kind of wondering what a warrant question would look like, a dollar amount. I mean, we haven't had a dollar amount on the build out in a while. And I'm just wondering if you have something that is near what we may be asking in July.
I'd rather talk about that in the entire cost conversation, because depending on how we structure it, those numbers can be very different. The cost of building the entire project is not necessarily the cost that will be borne by the taxpayers, even separate from this outside funding. One of the key questions that we're still wrestling with is the connection to each individual property, and whether that is wrapped into the entire build or whether that's paid directly by the property owner. And that makes a huge difference in what that number is. So I'd rather talk about that as in a standalone meeting where the broadband committee and the town council can really walk through the specifics of the network design and the pricing structure together to understand the whole picture.
Thank you.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so getting back to the third item, in preparation for the above warrant question, the broadband committee requests a work session with the council dedicated to discussion of the construction and operation of the island-wide building, island-wide network, including network design, pricing, and timetable. So that's basically just looking at getting us to commit to the meeting.
we think it'd be helpful. We'd like to tell you about it. Would you like to listen?
Oh, yeah. How soon do you want to do that?
I think in the next week to 2 weeks would be great, week to 10 days. But I haven't necessarily pulled the committee. We were waiting to see what the council's schedule was.
Okay.
And I think we will accommodate yours.
Okay, and vice versa. I mean, I think the concern on everyone's part and the obvious necessity for getting this done is tantamount. So we'll work with you and come up with a date as soon as possible to do this. So, any further comments or questions, Stan? Go ahead, Stan.
We just try and pick a day now, or do you want Molly to try and do it? I'm just thinking for the 27th of July, working backwards and being able to communicate, in the paper or however we're going to communicate and make sure all the voters are knowledgeable. It would seem to me that the next, the Tuesday, or we want to keep the Mondays, and Monday the 29th or the 1st. That gives then 1, 2, 3.5 weeks before the July 27th. So I guess next week I'd like to push for if everybody's available or sooner.
Other comments? Schedule-wise? Anybody?
I mean, we could pick a day now. It's fine with me.
All right. Is everybody going to be here next Monday?
Andre, you're gonna be off.
Yes, Monday's not good. I don't want to commit to it. I
Okay.
will be off.
Wednesday the 1st.
Wednesday the 1st Wednesday's fine.
Amy, is that okay with you that early?
Yes. Yep.
So we're tentatively Wednesday the 1st?
Yeah, we'll work out the details, but let's shoot for that Wednesday.
Okay.
Everybody else can do it. Martha,
1 o'clock.
do you have any comments on that?
No, my only concern would be, is this the only meeting we're having on this? Because that's actually a long time between the time of the meeting and the time of the financial town meeting.
Amy, go ahead.
I think we would, whether the council chooses to invite us again, we would certainly be holding public information work sessions, either with the council or separately.
So I certainly think you have to have something closer to the 27th, because that's like 3 weeks is a long time for retention. We all know that from past experience. I'm fine with the 1st. I just think that there has to be something after that.
Okay. Thank you, Martha. Okay, so there we have it. We'll work on the actual details of the meeting, the parameters, but that's when we'll do it. Anything else on that, Amy? On that was the 3 items on number 3, I believe. Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I think it was actually 3 and 4 together.
Okay. That'll cover 4 also? Yeah, okay. All right. Thank you, Amy. We'll look forward to the meeting and to moving this forward.
Amy, if there's any pre-reading, even the day before, if you could send that out just so, we're a little bit more, prepared. But if not, I know you're crashing, it's a lot of work. So thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is to receive and act on tax abatements. Looks like we have 2 different tax abatements. One dated March 2nd, one dated January 28th, both 2020. But one is for the tax roll abatements for 2018, totaling $25,027.09. The other one is for total 2019 tax roll abatements totaling 3,907.43. And that first one was 2,527.09. Any questions or comments? These are both recommended by the Board of Tax Assessors. I'll make a motion to approve the tax abatements as presented.
Second.
Seconded by Chris. Any further comments or questions at this time? All those in favor? Chris?
Aye.
Andre?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
I approve. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is receive and act on a recommendation of the tax collector regarding uncollectible 2010 taxes. We have a memo from Amy. Taxes to write off as uncollectible submitted in a list of accounts that have been delinquent for at least 10 years and for which the tax collector has been unable to obtain a payment. And the total there represents $539.85.
Second,
A motion, who seconded it?
I did.
Andre, thank you. A motion is made and seconded to approve the total of 2010 taxes to write off at $539.89. Sven?
Amy, I know it's a nit, but Kevin Larkin? Is that the same Larkin?
What's the question?
Is Kevin Larkin, that's the same Larkin family that's on the island?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, all those in favor, Andre?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Sven? Martha?
Aye.
I vote in the affirmative. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the authorization of over expenditures of certain appropriations not exceeding the adopted fiscal year 2020 budget. We do have a memo from Amy relative to this. Amy, would you like to fill us in?
Sure. We've identified 4 departments that will be have projected over expenditures at the end of the year above their appropriated budget levels. That doesn't mean there aren't other line items within the budget that may be overexpended, but there are offsetting items within their departments. Most of them we should be entirely familiar with. We've discussed them along the way. The first is in fire rescue emergency management under dispatch wages, and a planned over expenditure of $12,500. Under police, a combination of wages, benefits, and overtime totaling $64,000. Under GIS technology, a projected over expenditure of $33,000 under consultant technology. That's almost entirely COVID driven in that we were not projecting those until that happened. And then the final is debt service under BIPCO, $17,654. And that's because we had budgeted for that note to be retired during the year and it remains outstanding. Those are, if you turn to the second page of the memo, offset by under expenditures in other areas, most significantly under highways and maintenance. We have a projected under expenditure totaling $131,000, a combination of wages, benefits for an unfilled position, snow removal, under expenditures in facility stabilization and building maintenance lines. And then finally, under library, wages and benefit savings, again with a part year position that went unfilled.
Amy, 2 questions come to mind. The first one is under the GIS technology section. Is that going to be reimbursable under COVID, under the federal?
We're certainly going to try. The initial guidance did not include technology expenditures, but but everyone's been arguing pretty strenuously that they should be. So we'll continue to pursue them, but I can't guarantee it.
Okay, and then on the highways and maintenance, the facility stabilization, that stabilization, is that to the building, the corner of the building that still needs to be done?
No, that's the more general facilities maintenance, facility stabilization line
Okay,
that would apply to many different buildings. The corner that you're discussing is a state responsibility
all right, that's right.
outside of our budget.
That's what I was wondering. I didn't want to write that off because I know it still needs to be done.
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions or comments on this item?
Amy, can you just explain the other two departments, what those overages are all about?
Thank you, Andre. Amy, did you catch that?
Which two?
Well, the first two, the ones we haven't discussed.
Oh, sure. Dispatch, from 18 months ago when that budget was put together for fiscal year 20, the staffing has changed pretty significantly in that we've had a fair amount of turnover and reallocation of hours. So it's an over expenditure that we sort of saw coming from pretty early on as a result of, again, turnover in that department. And then again, police wages, we knew that we had an officer out, which accounts for a lot of the overtime. And then that we brought in another officer starting halfway through the year. So that's the wages and the benefits, the 21,000 and the 16 for a partial year.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to authorize the over expenditures of appropriations not exceeding the adopted 2020 budget as presented.
Second.
Seconded by Andre. Any further comments? All those in favor, Andre?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Sven?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
Thank you. I'm voting the affirmative. Motion carries 5-0. Next item on the agenda is to act on assignment of 2020 capital and operating funds for the use in 2021, renewal of prior year's unexpected assignments and release of expired assignments. There again, we have a memo from Amy about this, but it's always good to hear it firsthand. Go ahead, Amy.
Sure. This is normally where we carry things over for projects that either we didn't get started or maybe had some changes to it and we needed to hold those funds for another year. This year, I'm not actually asking you to authorize any carryovers. And that's because any projects that aren't currently underway would have to be reappropriated in the future. So I've identified at the top of that memo which projects I'm sort of recommending that you let go. And that's the New Harbor Vision Study, which had a funding level of $30,000 in the current year, fiscal year 20 budget. And any work beyond the engineering that was planned for Heinz Field drainage and for replacement of the Coast Guard dock. Again, because of the over expenditures and revenue shortfalls in the current year, we can't responsibly carry forward those funds. And so we're going to have to reappropriate those funds in a future year. There are some commitments that are underway, and that's sort of in the middle of the page, but projects that we've started, you don't need to take any action for because the dollars are actually under contract, and that includes the library renovations, the windows in particular, and that's partially grant matched as well. And then we have committed the engineering costs for Heinz Field and the Coast Guard dock, so we won't have to start those projects from the bottom, but we'll continue to work on that engineering, which in both cases is still underway anyway. And so hopefully when it comes time to revisit those, we will have better numbers to work with. Any questions on not carrying forward anything before I move to the next section?
Andre, go ahead.
Thank you, Ken. So Amy, just to circle back to the projects that are already underway. I mean, I know the library windows have been on the docket for quite some time, and those are gonna get done Do you know when that's going to be accomplished? Do you know when that project will be finished?
I don't know when it's finished, Jim. I don't know if you have an update. I do know it's under contract.
I'm reaching back to the last time I had the conversation. It was before, it was right as we were going into the COVID virus. It was 2 different phases, right? And one was done, and they were, my recollection was that they were about to start the 2nd phase, but I haven't had a conversation since then.
Okay, I'm fine with that. I just know it's been a long time since we authorized those funds, and leaking windows cause other problems. So I'm glad the work's getting done. Thank you.
Okay. Sven Riesen?
Amy, on the New Harbor Vision, just to balance for a minute. So we're keeping some of the funds in there that have already been contracted, but then we're pushing, or we're taking some out because of where we are. Are they being rolled into next year so we don't forget them, or are they, what's happening to those line items that we're taking out?
Sure. As you said, we do have a balance. It's $18,313 that was appropriated in 2015 and 2019.
Yep.
The $30,000 that was planned for fiscal year 20 will just go away. And so we'll start with $18,000 in hand when we bring it back. So at this point, at the earliest, would be fiscal year 22.
So right now,
Since
that'll be
it's-
sort of a line item in 2022, or we have to remember to bring it back in?
We need to remember to bring it back in. It is on the working document. It's slated for 22. But again, that's a bigger conversation that the council and the planning board need to have. Yeah. But it's on the list.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other comments? Sorry, go ahead. Amy?
Sure. The next group of items is 3. Oh, see, Sven, I misspoke. I'm gonna have to take it all back because the next 3 groups are items that I'm actually recommending that you release the assignments for because they have been sitting on our books for quite some time. And so I had included that New Harbor Vision funding, that $18,000, as something the council would want to consider letting go of, revisiting the entire project as a clean slate. That's obviously something we can talk about. The other 2 were the $22,500 that was budgeted in 2018 for paving of West Beach Road, and the $12,000 that was budgeted in 2017 for lockers at the Hospitality Center. And so I would recommend those for release, but the council can take them as a group or individually for discussion.
Anyone have any preference?
However you see fit, Amy.
I guess I have a question, Amy, on 2 of the lines.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you, sorry. And I got to dive back a little bit. If I think about the Hospitality Center, I know if I remember correctly in last week's discussion, we had $10,000 earmarked for them in the current budget or the upcoming budget. I don't know how that related to what they had actually been looking for or need, quote unquote. If you could remind me or help me with what tourism gave. In other words, what's sort of the balance to current needs?
So if I could in here, Ken.
Go ahead, Jim.
What we were working on before our lives were all changed, I had written a letter identifying about 31,000 expenses, requesting that the Tourism Council consider making a contribution of 15,000 and the town make a contribution of 15,000. There was a meeting, I didn't attend it. What was relayed to me coming from that was a reasonable likelihood that it would come out 10,000 contributed by the town, 10,000 contributed by the Tourism Council. This was not a vote. It was not done. It was not, so I don't want to represent it that way, or I don't want people to misrepresent what I'm saying, but there was a conversation about that arrangement. And then that would leave 10,000 for the visitor center to contribute. And this was basically to cover the cost of the 4 staff members. So your question was, what was the expectation? I think that was still being developed through that process. And we went over what we proposed the town contribute to that process. So we don't, the recommendation last week was, shall we say, unilateral.
Go ahead, Stan.
I understand the word. What does that mean?
It means,
Unilateral. What does that
it means it's a recommendation that the town make that contribution. That's not based in some agreement with the 2 other entities that might have come to agreement.
Okay, but it's still, if I understand, Jim, their lockers were always a big part of the revenue stream. I understand the lockers are still part of the revenue stream going forward. At least I think so. So if we're relieving these and getting rid of that $12,000, then I guess we have to do it next year, and it delays everything. But my understanding is the Hospitality Center is going to be built this year, or may have some modifications or renovations applied to it this year, right?
First of all, I would say the second, I think whatever modifications may happen this year would be minor. I think they may include lockers. That effort included really modernizing those lockers. But I think as it relates to this season, I'm going to try to talk with Cindy tomorrow, but I think the approach is to not use the lockers. That's the approach for this summer.
Right.
And my understanding for this was, the amount of money in this fund was there to fix or maintain lockers. So I guess, Sven, the way I see this happening in the future is that the town, that oftentimes in cases like this, if people can make a mental note, and it doesn't have to just be mental, it can be printed, of releasing a certain fund balance during an extraordinarily difficult year. I had this conversation with the representatives of the fire department last week. You kind of make sure that those are in the right position when the town's getting back on its feet. And I know you don't need me to explain that, but I see this that way, so that when the conversation starts, someone like you can remind the others trying to identify priorities that, hey, there was $12,000 in this fund that was released. I think we should at least consider that when we're putting together a proposal.
Go ahead, Sven.
And if I can just, the other one to me, which is near and dear to my heart, and I'm sure a couple of other council members, because they see it, live it every day, is the New Harbor Vision Study that former town manager started. I think this is a right decision to delay, Amy. I think that's the right thing to do, but I just don't want to lose it and forget about it, because it's only getting worse. And so I think we just need to figure out how to fix, or not fix, but at least how to deal with New Harbor in a appropriate way.
How to retain the corporate memory.
Yeah.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Anybody? Amy,
I have a question.
Oh, Martha, go ahead. Yeah.
I have a question that's not exactly related to this. It's about the hospitality center and the women's side of the restroom where the floor curls up onto the wall. It's separated. Is that going to be repaired, fixed, super glued, something?
I'll write it down.
We can pass that along. Obviously, I don't believe Sam Bird is on with us this evening. So,
okay, because there's something going on down there that needs to be fixed, and I don't know if I have no idea what the story is. It's not not my field of expertise, other than it needs to be fixed.
Okay.
Not next year.
Right. Okay.
Thanks, Martha.
Remaining assigned fund balances.
Sure, and that's just for the council's information since we talked about all the other fund balances. These would be the ones that we continue to retain, and that's what we've been building up as dollars towards school improvements, now at $421,750, and then the balance of some generator work for the public safety complex and the Coast Guard station, which is partially completed.
Okay. Other questions or comments on this? Hearing none, then Amy, I believe we need a motion to release the assignments for the Hospitality Center, the West Beach Road, and New Harbor Vision Study. Yes, okay. I'll make a motion to release, as recommended, the assignment for the fund balances related to the Lockers Hospitality Center, the fund balance related to the capital line for West Beach Road, and the fund balance related to New Harbor Vision Study, Vision Facility Study for the fiscal years as indicated.
Second.
Seconded by Andre. Thank you. Any further discussion or comment?
Can I just ask, like, that's, Amy, is this just gonna go into the pot of money and go back into this, that, and the other thing?
Yeah, it'll become part of the town's unreserved fund balance. So when we talk about how low we're comfortable that level going, it's sort of already built this into those projections. So yeah, it shores up those reserves, which obviously we're drawing on.
Thank you.
Further comments or questions? Sven, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Amy, just to make sure I heard what you said. So these have already been assigned in your spreadsheet of the estimates we had a week or two ago?
I've included my recommendations in the projections I shared with you earlier.
So I can't add them, huh?
Cannot.
Thank you.
All right. Further comments or questions? All those in favor, Andre?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
I vote in the affirmative. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Amy, for the continued good work. Go ahead.
Ken, one question, Amy, maybe you can help me because I should have caught it before, but I was still thinking about it. Going back a little bit, and maybe you can just help explain it to me. On the over-under, we talked, Andre asked about fire rescue and police. I was scratching my head about GIS because I don't have last year's budget. I have only the current budget. I thought we had a whole line for GIS. Is that an overage or is that an assignment? 33 feels like a 2x4 in the head.
So I think we're just using terminology that's not matching for you. GIS technology is the name of the department that incorporates a number of line items, including the GIS professional. The actual overage within GIS technology department is for the consultant technology line. So this is for our IT consultant, which also lives in that department. Does that make sense?
Sure, but there is also an IT line in the budget. So does that mean that information technology is 33 over budget? I'm just trying to understand because I did assign it to GIS in my head, and that's why I was scrambling here. But if it's IT, I'm just trying to understand where's the overage. Yes,
it's in the IT consultant line. And on a budget of 100,000, we're projecting about 133. That's based on the numbers that we saw for March and April. I don't have the May numbers yet. And again, we were right on track until COVID.
Thank you. That helps break it down. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Any further comments on that? Final item on the agenda tonight is to authorize a transfer of landing fees to the general fund. Amy?
Sure, and this has become an annual exercise in that the town collects a landing fee or authorizes the ferry companies to collect a landing fee on the town's behalf. And it's to be used for promoting the health, safety, and welfare of passengers, including certain exercises. So what we do and what we've done is identify a lot of the categories of our operating budget that fit into that criteria. You can see there's a fair amount that can be tied to our seasonal visitor population. And so we make a transfer from the landing fee account to support the operating budget and offset some of those costs of our seasonal visitors. So the amount there is on the last line. It's recommended the council authorize a transfer of $169,001.23, which represents the landing fees collected for calendar 2018. There's a lag in when we do this.
Comments or questions? Andre?
Amy, I know you guys have done a great job with this budget, and we're getting money put in, and so this has already been accounted for in your final accounting.
Yes, this is a budgeted revenue item for the current year budget for fiscal year 20. And it's a transfer that we make at the end of the year.
So this money is accounted for if we put it in there.
Yes, if you don't put it in there, I've got some fancy footwork to do.
Thank you, and I think the public needs to just know that, because the fact that we're not giving the raises to the employees this year is it bothers me, and I know it bothers them more. And I'm just going to ask one more time. I mean, if we could, that's not recoverable money through COVID funds, wages, or anything like that. I'm just trying to give one last ditch effort for that initiative. I mean, because you know how hard everyone's worked. You're in that office every single day. So I just wanted to mention that. I mean, like I said, I think we're shifting a lot of money around tonight, and I just would like everybody to know that it's part of the final accounting, and it's not up for grabs right now. So yeah.
Jim Kern?
I was just going to say to Andre's question, in rough terms, that depends in terms of what's going to be reimbursable. Amy and her group spend more time on this than the town managers, obviously, finance directors, town accountants. But they've also started some of the FEMA application process, so to speak, to see what might be applicable. There's an awful lot that's going to go on over the next 6 to 12 months, hopefully not much longer than that. But in general, I think it would be prudent for any municipality, particularly Block Island, who typically, you have some experienced people here. They know how it usually goes with FEMA reimbursement. I think Amy has some kind of comment about when she actually got Superstorm Sandy reimbursement years later. So there's some real questions as to whether what's going to be reimbursable, what's going to even be eligible, and then there's the funding piece. So prudent to operate in a way that that kind of minimizes what your expectations are. If they come through, you're in a position of maximum flexibility.
Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, I make a motion to authorize the transfer of landing fees to the general fund as recommended. The total was, Amy, correct me if I'm wrong, $169,001.23. Yes.
Correct.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Andre. Thank you. Any further discussion or comment? All those in favor, Andre?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
I vote in the affirmative. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Amy, for the hard work. We appreciate it very much.
Thank-
Sven, go ahead.
I just said thank you, Amy. Sorry.
Okay. Nothing further on the agenda. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
By Andre. All those in favor, Andre?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
None. Martha? Martha?
Aye.
Thank you. I vote in the affirmative. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all. Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you Wednesday.